Hello, my name is Inga Patsch and welcome to this videos of the series System Thinking. Today we will deal with patterns and the behavior over time, and we will see how the causal loop diagram refers to pattern which we can observe in the behavior of a certain phenomena over time. So let me start with the first typical behavior which we can observe if we have any kind of reinforcing loop. So what you see below is the typical exponential growth curve. I have made it rather flat. It could also be rather steep. But basically every time we have a reinforcing loop, which can be read like more demand for energy, the more burning of fossil fuels, the more burning of fossil fuels, the more economic development, and the more economic development, the more demand for energy, we would always observe a pattern which either increases or it could also be decreasing. For example, a positive example of a negative reinforcement loop would be to get rid of the addiction of smoking, for example. So it could be something like the more days without a cigarette, the more healthy you will feel, the more healthy you feel, the less you'll miss the cigarette, and the less you miss the cigarette, the less likely you will grab again a package of cigarette, and the more days you will have without cigarettes. So this would be a typical example of a negative reinforcement. So negative doesn't mean negative in the sense it's not socially or health-wise desired. It just means that whichever pattern is there is decreasing, while positive can be whichever pattern is there is increasing. Again, this can have a social or negative impact, a social positive or negative impact. So positive simply means the pattern is an increasing one. Another example is a variation of the same thing. This is if any kind of reinforcing loop is combined with a balancing loop, as we have in the case of birth and death in the population. So we can say the higher population, the more births there will be over time with a certain delay, and the more births there are, the higher the population with an immediate effect. And at the same time, we can say the more higher the population is, with a certain delay, there will be more and more deaths in total numbers, and the more deaths there will be, the lower the population with an immediate effect. And the first loop in the lifespan of any population will probably, if a new population of species comes in a certain area, it will probably start with a steep increase as the population is rather young, so the number of births will increase faster than the number of deaths. But then slowly, as the population will age, the number of deaths will keep up with the number of births, and we can see how the curve flattens out. Another typical behavior over time pattern which we can observe is if we see any kind of pattern fading out. So it's either the upper lines we can see in the middle. This is the goal of a certain desired state of something, as in the example above, the desired amount of tea in a cup of tea, for example. And then you have an actual state which is either below or above this goal. In our cup of tea, it would be the below line, and we can see how by pulling the tea we slowly will reach and eventually meet the actual level of tea, and the line will fade out. Because it's a balancing loop, we see always this fading out behavior. And then last example I want to give today of a behavior over time pattern, and there are many out there, but this is just another example, is if you see any kind of oscillating movement, which is like this, you can assume, and again, we have a certain desired state. This is happening if you have a delay between actually the action and the change of the actual state. So we can see how maybe you have the desired state of a temperature, and you turn the fusee and it's too hot, then you turn it back down and it's too cold and it's a bit too hot. So slowly you will find exactly the spot where the temperature will be right, but it will take you a few oscillations because of the delay, how to reach there. I hope that this gave you a short insight on how different causal loop diagrams can be reflected into different patterns, which we can then observe, and how you, vice versa, if you see a certain pattern of any kind of variable, you might be able to have an idea what could be the underlying causal loop diagrams basic type of looking like. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please subscribe my channel, or see you in the next video on systems thinking.